preparing for the worst. Survival is the thirst, a channel for the purpose where the burst safety comes first. Rural report guiding you through the storm. When disaster strikes, we'll keep you informed. Gather your gear, stock up your pantry. When the world goes dark, we'll guide you to sanity. From shelter to first aid, we'll cover it all. On Rural Report, we stand tall. Prepping for the unknown, it's our mission. With tips and tricks for your prepping ambition. Stay prepared, stay informed. Join us as we weather the storm. Rural Report, your prepping guide. Through chaos and crisis, we'll be your ride. Together we'll face the apocalypse. On this channel, safety equips.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Rural Report, where I have brought a special guest, none other than Pinball from Pinball Preparedness. Sir, how are you?
Doing good.
Good to hear. And how is everything on the Pinball Homestead Ranch compound? I don't know what we're calling it.
There you go. Hot, like everywhere else. You know, just trying to get everything done in the mornings while you can, so you're not out there getting hurt in the heat.
Yes, that is. That's right now. We're kicking it off with excellent advice. Get it done before the heat of the day. Let's see. So I have put out on all of my social media that I'm going to be talking with you and to put out some questions. And we have a few here, which the first question comes from CUCV Farmer. And he wants to know about, because he's watched your channel and all the reviews and things on your solar.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about what solar setups and things that you have at your place?
Okay, so I call it a whole home system, but it's not really because it doesn't run my HVAC system. All right, but everything else, my lights, my kitchen appliances, my well pump, my hot water heater, everything is all on there. If I wanted to do one that had an HVAC system, it would cost me way too much freaking money. And okay, I've got backup heat sources, alternate heat sources other than an HVAC system, and cooling, which of course is going to be the toughest one. I've got some portable ACs, fans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, in that respect, it was kind of a, how do you want to put it, a cost analysis, going, all right, it's not worth $50,000 more to put a huge system in just so I can run my HVAC. It wasn't going to be worth it. But I made sure I had enough so I could get water, which that was my biggest, that was the reason I did it in the first place. I wanted something I could run my well pump. And so I put my system together with that and then expanded out. Now, of course, it doesn't, it covers 10 circuits in the house. Anybody go look in your fuse box and your breaker box, and you've got a whole lot more than 10 circuits in there. So you got to figure out which ones are crucial. I don't need to run my doorbell on my solar system, so that's not in there. Closets in a spare bedroom, no. That wasn't important. But it did leave holes on some things that I wanted to do. So when I built my system, I built it for all of the stuff, I guess, if you will, that was hardwired into the house, not necessarily the stuff that was plugged in. Now, the kitchen was different. We did put the kitchen plugs on there because there are so many things in the kitchen that you're going to want to have, your coffee maker, your microwave, your refrigerator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't put my garage on the system at all. Well, I've got my freezers in the garage. Okay. So then for those, I've got separate standalone generators that run other things. So they're running my washing machine, for example. If power goes out, I can wash clothes in the washing machine. Dryer would be a whole different one because that's 240. I did not hook up my dryer, and I wasn't going to go out and spend, at the time, $8,000 on 2 more generators. Now I could do it now with some of the new ones, but I don't. But so I've got a whole home system that runs overhead lights. I mean, I'm running off of solar right here right now. But then there are also smaller generators that I have that run other appliances in the house. So my washing machine, my freezers, et cetera, et cetera.
Very nice. Very nice. And everybody asks good questions. So I think every single one of these, I have my personal follow-up.
Go for it.
On power, if we're talking about SHTF, emergency backup power, in your opinion, is it a must-have for survival, or are we going to call this a prepper's luxury item?
Electricity?
Yes.
That's a must-have. And I'm going to go off of multiple things. How many people need it for medical reasons for something? Okay. Whether you need a CPAP at night. Okay, something small there. If you have any medications that need refrigeration, I mean, God knows pretty much everybody's read the book 1 second after, and you know what happened to the guy's daughter, all right? Died because there wasn't any insulin, couldn't keep it cold. All right, so you got that. If you really rough it, let's say you're going to hunt your way. Let's say this lasts 3, 4, 5 years in an SHTF situation. You go get a deer. You're not going to eat the whole thing in a day. You've got to somehow preserve it. And I'm betting that most people don't have enough salt to salt it. You could smoke it. You could dry it. Okay, but how many people have the stuff to do that? Pretty much what you're going to be doing is freezing it or canning it. And then when you get to the canning side of things, you're going to need some sort of power as well. If you've got an electric stove, obviously. But if anybody's ever tried to use their canner over an open fire, that's a little difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And then people say, well, I can do it over my propane burner. Sure, until you run out of propane. You know, that the reason I like solar is because I'm not going to run out of fuel. Let's just put it that way. You know, it's not gasoline, it's not diesel. There's no electricity, there's no gas coming out of the gas stations. So you're not going to be able to go get more. At least with the solar, I've got it. If we have a situation where there's no solar, we got bigger problems than electricity. At that point, you're talking about no heat, no sunlight whatsoever. We're basically going to die off anyway. So that's my belief. But yeah, I think electricity is a must-have.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back. You can start a fire how many different ways, but what's every single prepper's go-to? Big lighter.
Right. Yeah.
So with electricity, yeah, you can can it, you can salt it, you can do everything, but why not just process, it into a bag, throw it in the fridge, throw it in the freezer?
Yep, exactly. I mean, because again, in an SHTF situation, the one thing that nobody has enough of is time. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's probably people out there who have massive mags and stuff like that where everybody could do everything. But a lot of people are talking their family, maybe a couple of neighbors, 6, 8 people at a time. Well, if we get in that kind of situation, at any given time, a third of those are on guard duty, protecting the perimeter. Okay. So some have to sleep, because the ones that did guard duty overnight are sleeping during the day, for example. So there's only a couple of people that are going to be able to do any of the work during the day. Yep. And if you're all by yourself trying to process a deer, it's going to be a lot easier to cut it up, throw it in bags, stick it in the freezer, and move on to the other one of the 86 tasks you've got to do.
Yes. I love that. Let's see. Let's move to Jennifer Ocean Homestead, who wants to know your thoughts and maybe your recommendations for grow lights for indoors.
I've done a couple of videos on that before. Now, you got to remember with grow lights. You got to make sure you got the correct Kelvin, and you got to have the correct lumens. Okay, you can't just go buy a fluorescent light at Home Depot and say, okay, I'm going to grow with this. It doesn't work that way. You got to be, and off the top of my head, I can't think of it. I'd have to go back and look at my video on it. But I think if she wanted to go look, I think the video is called "Let There Be Light," so she'd be able to find it. It's in the description, so she wouldn't even have to watch the video I put in there. I remember that because I get that question, every spring at least. But now with grow lights, what are you trying to accomplish? There's the thing. If you're trying to grow leafy greens, lettuce or something like that, or kale or Swiss chard or something, all you need are the white lights. No problem. Okay. If you are trying to grow anything that fruits, tomatoes, peppers, whatever like that, now you need the full spectrum. And so you're going to have to go get those. The other thing that people always forget about when they're trying to do like an indoor setup like that is temperature control. Because different vegetables germinate at different temperatures. And, so give you this, I mean, like if you want to grow cabbage, okay, all you need for that is white grow lights. Cabbage germinates around 65 degrees. Cabbage hates it when it's 80, okay? But if you want to grow peppers don't germinate until it's 80. So you got to have that temperature control too. Now, not necessarily saying you're going to put an air conditioning unit in there, but you're going to need to get a greenhouse heater of some sort, because if most people, if they're going to do this indoors, are going to do it in the basement. So you get your basement, which is cool. You're going to want to heat it if you're trying to do peppers. Hopefully, you're probably going to have to use it for the cabbage too, because by the time you're starting cabbage or something like that, or the leafy greens, you're starting those in January, February, and it's probably, for most of the country, below 65 at that time, so you're going to need to raise the temperatures. So besides the grow light, you need to have some sort of heat source, and there are plenty of greenhouse heaters that you can get.
Excellent. And that gave me my my kind of follow-up. So talking about indoor growing, we can do this as indoor or outdoor, but do you think it might be wise to grow in multiple locations versus just one big garden, with the thought process of don't put all your eggs in one basket?
Are you talking about multiple locations on one property, or multiple locations depending on site? Or are you talking about here and also 5 miles away, for example?
Ooh, I'm going to say multiple locations on one property.
Okay, absolutely multiple locations on one property, not one big garden. And I'll give you a perfect reason why. In an SHTF event, there is no more Walmart, there is no more Amazon. So next year you are going to need seeds. Okay, you're not, if you grow, I don't know, let's say bell peppers and jalapeno peppers. If you put them in the same garden, they're going to cross pollinate. You're not going to be able to save seeds from those. So you need to keep those at least a couple of 100 feet apart. Grow your bell peppers in a garden at the top of the yard, grow your jalapenos in a garden at the bottom of the yard. You're significantly reducing your chances of cross-pollination. Tomatoes, I mean, how many people grow multiple kinds of tomatoes? You're growing paste tomatoes or beefsteak tomatoes or cherry tomatoes, or they cross-pollinate. You'll still grow tomatoes with those seeds, but you have no idea what they are. You cross a cherry tomato and a beefsteak, and you may get beefsteak tomatoes that are this big. That's it. So yes, absolutely multiple gardens. I've got 4.
Perfect. Let's see, who else do we got? We got Hyde1111, who is going to get technical on you here. And so they're asking, with the brand name such as Garden Tone, which is a 344, is it as good as a commercial 10-10-10, or would you have to put extra on it or do anything else?
Well, you got to look at what, I mean, because I use Garden Town, I use the 344 to start my seedlings, and I mix that in very lightly with my seed starting mix that I make. Okay, so there's just a little bit in there for seed starting, but just based on the NPK that you're talking about, a 344 is 1/3 as potent as a 10-10-10.
Right.
So just based on the NPK of it, you're going to need to use 3 times as much. You know, a 344 is good for, as I use it, like I said, for seed starting, but you know, you're not going to want to use that for heavy feeders. Not at all, because it's not going to give the nutrition that the plant needs. You're just going to be throwing money away unless you're tripling it up. And at that point, you're spending way more money than you would if you go out and buy a bag of 10-10-10.
Right. Right. Which gives the idea, if you have a bunch of it and SHTF happens,
it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you that. But as long as you can get 10-10-10, I'm not tripling up on my 344.
Yes. Yes. Very good. Very good. Next one comes all the way from Prepping with Sarge. And he wants to know what your thoughts are on potential sleeper cells. And if you believe there are, how does one prep for those?
I did a video on this the other day. And absolutely, I believe there are sleeper cells in the country. In my opinion, I think you're kind of naive if you don't believe they're here, because 4 years of wide open borders with military age males coming across the border, and whether they are Islamic jihadists, whether they are Chinese communists, whether they are MS-13 or TDA or whatever, they're here. And the only way to protect yourself is to get to know everybody in your community now. And because when it comes to a point that we wind up in a FUBAR situation, you're not going to trust anybody that's new. But if you already know Joe down the block, you know, Bob up the street, whatever, you already know these people, they're good. Where it's going to be even more interesting is, and we hear this in the news all the time, is racial profiling. And if you don't think racial profiling is going to be front and center in a SHTF situation, you're sadly mistaken, because somebody comes by that's Asian or Arabic or Hispanic, and they're not in your neighborhood normally, yet they're getting the side eye real quick. They could be the most innocent person. It'd be a great benefit to your group. But if you don't know them now, you don't want to let them in, because you don't know. Community is so important, knowing the people around. And those of us that live in rural communities have a big advantage of that, because rural communities are kind of like Peyton's place. Everybody knows what everything's going on, and you know people. But you know, you live in an apartment complex in the city somewhere, you don't know. Chances are you don't know the person next door, because people have a tendency to keep to themselves. But yeah, sleeper cells are definitely here, no question. And you know, one day they're all just waiting for the Facebook post or the phone call or the pager, whatever says it's go time, and that's when everything's going to get crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And I tell you, one of the reasons why I respect your channel is because you put it out there. You say exactly what you say. You're not afraid of tiptoeing and all that. And I recently put out my video of sexism in a survival situation. And then coincidentally, you followed it up just with yours of doing profiling. And I'm glad you brought that up because just what you were saying with being naive. I just recently started rewatching Game of Thrones out of boredom. We're talking way back in medieval times. What did they have? People infiltrating other people. It's been going on forever.
Trojan horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is not a new tactic.
No. Yeah. You got to get to know your people. You got to get out there. And it's exactly what you said. Something looks out of place. It's not a bad thing to put your guard up. You know, that is just a survival mechanism. You're not going out there and beating them because of it. You're just going, hang on, hold up.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. You know, it's not going to be a shoot on sight if you see anybody who's not lily white, but it's not going to be, hey, you're welcome in here with open arms either.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. And that brought up one of my follow-up questions. So if an SHTF happens, should one basically set up on their area, basically a small country, something like borders, rules, security, things like that?
You have to, absolutely. And that's one of the things I've talked about with the group around here is I think that's going to be the downfall to a lot of groups is you're going to have too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Yes.
And everybody has a different idea of how things go. And I mentioned guard duty a little bit ago. You know damn well there's going to be somebody, I'm not doing the 2 to 4 a.m. shift. Somebody's got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be the same person every day. You know, you've got to rotate. There's going to be a lot of things that people are going to have to do that they don't want to do. You have to have some sort of hierarchy, if you will. Somebody has to be in charge. And I'll use like a military chain of command here, if you will. There's going to be somebody who's in charge of food preparation. There's going to be somebody who's in charge of the armory, for example. Okay. Who's going to fix the weapons? There's going to be somebody who's in charge of medical. There's going to be somebody who's in charge of providing food, whether it's growing, hunting, fishing, whatever. Okay. But just because that person is in charge of it doesn't mean they're not going to do anything else. I don't care if you got, you know, an MD in your mag. He's still pulling guard duty. You know, he's still going to have to do latrine duty. Everybody's going to have to pitch in and do the jobs that nobody wants to do.
Yes.
And the first time that somebody says, I'm not doing that, that's when you got to show them the door. We all work together, period. I mean, and that's it. And there has to be somebody in charge of each discipline, and then there has to be some sort of person or basically a person in charge of overseeing everything who is the ultimate authority. And that's where it's going to be tough because a lot of people are going to want to be. It doesn't absolve that person from pulling guard duty, digging a latrine, doing whatever either. All right. But there has to be somebody who has the capacity to make a decision that cannot be wishy-washy. Well, you know, if you just go shake hands with them, that ain't going to fly. It's like, this is what you're going to do, end of story. That's what's got to happen. And there's going to be some people that can accept that, and there's going to be some people that don't. And that's going to be the biggest problem in any group. Because there's always going to be some, I'm not doing that. There's the door.
Yep. Yes. So follow up while you were doing that, it entered my mind here. The way that I have mine, and I'd like your thoughts on it. If we have time, there's a problem, but it's not a time-sensitive problem. We're doing more of a collective kind of council getting together. But
Right.
we have that one person on a snap decision. We need an answer now. One person makes that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way it should be, because you don't want a dictatorship.
Yes.
You want to have, all right, guys, this is the issue we have. Let's hear everybody's ideas on how we solve it. And you almost have a board or something like that. Again, using the guy who's in charge of the armory, the guy who's in charge of cooking, whatever, and that's the board. Okay, and those people all get together. But like any other board, whether it's city council, the mayor's in charge, whether it's an HOA, you've got a president. Pick something. A company has a CEO. There's always that person at the top, and that's what it's got to be. And so everybody collectively talks about it. You come up with what the best solution is, and then it's ultimately decided upon collectively. But like you said, oh shit, we just got attacked. What do we do? You go there, you go there, you go there. We don't have time to sit there and negotiate who's doing what.
You mean there's not a pause button? Like, hang on, we gotta talk for an hour.
Yeah, there's also not a reset button if you take a bullet in the shoulder.
Well, dang, that throws half my plan out the window. So when we talk about giving out different tasks and different things, we have certain things like digging latrine, pulling weeds. Anybody can do it. Then you have skilled labor.
Mm-hmm.
Should you have it to where you are trying to make as many people skilled in as many tasks as possible, or should you only limit it to maybe having somebody doing like 2 specialized tasks?
You got to remember what your group is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is the thing. Not everybody's going to come in and have a skill set that is highly sought after. The guy's a CPA. Cool. I don't need taxes done. Okay. What else can you do? And somebody who might have been, your 1%er in the regular world, maybe you're pulling weeds or you're picking vegetables or doing whatever. That's it. Okay. So you've got that issue. You also have an age issue. You're going to have kids. You're going to have teenagers. You're going to have adults, and you're going to have elderly in your group. What is everybody capable of doing?
Yes.
I'm not putting a 6-year-old out on guard duty. Here, take an AR-15, and if anybody comes, no, that not happening. All right. What is somebody's physical capability? All right, you've got 80-year-old grandma or whatever. She's probably going to be best useful in the kitchen, but probably not real useful out in her wheelchair pulling guard duty,
right?
Or digging a latrine. So people should have a primary, a secondary, and an emergency. Just like everything else. All right, and there's certain jobs that everybody's doing. Physically capable of. Everybody's pulling guard duty. Everybody's going to do CQ. Charge of quarters. That they're the overnight point of contact. That everybody clear, because even your HOA president or your mayor or whatever you want to call them, okay, is going to have to sleep sometime, and there's got to be somebody that's going to make a decision. So you have a rotating CQ. They're going to make the decision. If something happens, well, Bob, who's running the whole show, comes out of his overnight grogginess. This person's already moved people to the right places or anything like that. It's going to be very fluid, and the only way that's going to work is if there's a mutual trust and a mutual respect amongst everybody.
Mm-hmm. Very much, very much. And I'd like to say that when you're putting a team together, what you were saying, you're going to have guard duty, you're going to have to grow food, you're going to have medical, you're going to have those same things. In our group, we actually have a person that does kind of like a counselor, therapist sort of thing as their day job. And they do a lot of writing and different things. And we have tasked that person that they are to keep track of a lot of our stuff and to go around and to be able to see those warning signs of somebody's not okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a real good idea that, honestly, it's never crossed my mind. But somebody on the psychiatric side of things, that's a big plus, because what could potentially happen, most everybody's never experienced. I mean, you may be lucky and have a couple of ex-military guys who are in Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever, but chances are most groups are, ma and pa, that's it, and maybe the kids that, didn't experience stuff like that. And it's going to shell shock them,
Yes.
what's going on. I mean, the first time somebody sees a dead body, they're changed forever.
Mhm.
I will say that. And how they react to it is going to be different from person to person,
Yes.
So, and again, is it friend or foe? Who's that corpse there? God forbid it's your spouse, your kid, whatever. That will change real fast.
Oh yeah, very much so. And which, if we have an SHTF, we know there's going to be dangers, whether that's two-legged, four-legged, different other things. And then some people have crossed the line and started saying, well, there's other things. There's things of malnutrition or eating the wrong thing or water, you don't have to do that. But I want to take it a step further. I have thought, and I'd like to know if you have any other ones, things that people don't think about, like mono. There's probably a whole lot of sharing in a small group of people, or STDs, or different things like that. But what do you think is going to be the silent thing that no one thinks about?
Oh my God, dysentery, infection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's going to be little things. Again, like you said, people are going to die from malnutrition. People are going to die from starvation. Hopefully, groups like yours, groups like mine, or whatever it is, we've covered stuff like that. But just the simple things of, where do you put a latrine, right?
Mm-hmm.
As we were talking about. Hopefully, we've still got houses and stuff like that. If you've got it set up that you still got water, okay. It's not like you can call the septic company to come out and clear up the septic. So that could eventually disappear too.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that don't have that. Well, now you start going out and relieving yourself uphill of your water source. Now you've just poisoned your water source.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I live near a lake or something like that. Sure. And so do thousands of other people. And as soon as they start peeing in the lake or taking a bath in the lake or whatever, that water is going to get polluted real fast.
Yes.
People that don't know how to purify water, oh, I'll just boil it. That ain't going to do it. I hate to tell you. And there's a lot of people, the majority of the people in this country, think this is going to be a walk in the park. Oh, it's no big deal. I'll hunt for my food. Sure. You and 358 million other people. Oh, gee, I live near a lake. It's going to be easy. Oh, nobody will come down my street. Want to bet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm out in the country. I'm safe. Where do you think everybody from the cities is going? Out in the country, they grow food out there. They raise cows out there. I'm going out there. Okay. And then all of a sudden, your little town of 1,000 people now all of a sudden has 30,000 people in it. What was that? One town, I forget what it was, up in Ohio, that got completely overrun by Haitians.
Oh yeah, just outside of Dayton.
Yeah, and within a few months, the town was toast. That was it. That's what people don't think about.
Yeah.
It's not the only threat that you have isn't the people that live around you, or isn't some enemy force. They're coming from the outside. When people start walking down the street trying to get away, they're not walking towards Chicago. They're walking away.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Yeah. And it's one of those, nature provides, and nature's also trying to take you out. So
right.
You got to be smart and use the resources. Let's see. Who do we got next? I got an email from James, who wants to know, and if I remember right, I think you just did a video on this not too long ago. Do you think a dollar collapse is possible / inevitable? And if so, how fast would the timeline look like?
You read it one more time. You froze up real quick for me.
Gotcha. The dollar collapse. Do you think it's inevitable or possible? And if so, how fast do you think the timeline would look like?
Okay, I'm going to get a little wonky here, but and this is why I talk about stuff like that, because people need to pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
You go look at the M2 money supply worldwide. In the last month, 1 month, there has been $5 trillion worth of money printed. Okay. Now it's converting everything to dollars. We didn't print it all here. But if the Japanese are printing, if the Saudis are printing, if the Russians are printing, if the Bolivians are printing, $5 trillion of money just got printed, created out of thin air. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that drives up worldwide inflation, drives up everything. There isn't a country that you can name that isn't in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And as interest rates stay high, it's harder and harder and harder to pay off that debt.
Yep.
So you've got that problem. This is when I talk about on the channel every once in a while, and I mention the Dixie, the dollar index, DXY, what Dixie what called on the street. And you look at where it was and where it is. And if I remember correctly, on Friday, it closed somewhere about 97.25 to 97.5, thereabouts. The dollar's getting weaker and weaker against the euro, against the British pound, against the Japanese yen, the Swiss franc, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Yes, eventually the dollar is going to collapse. We don't know when. We can't print our way out of this.
Correct.
And I've talked about before on the growing our way out of this, the tariff our way out of this. And it's not, it could feasibly work, except there's one caveat: the Senate or Congress, if you will. Because as soon as you have, gee, we took in $1 trillion in tariffs this year, does the Senate pay off the debt? No, they go, hey, cool, more money we can spend.
Mm-hmm.
So it can wind up being a problem that just snowballs. If they actually took the tariffs, if we actually took the taxes from the growth and used it to pay down the debt, yeah, then we're okay. But there's nobody in the world, I've never heard of a politician in my life who's ever gotten it through that says, you know, let's pay down the debt. Sure, Rand Paul will say it. Sure, Tom Massey will say it. But do we get any activity on it? When is the last time anybody's ever heard the phrase, the debt went down this month? Never. Okay? And it ain't going to happen. So yes, eventually we are going to get to a point where we hit, and economics has figured this out, where we hit debt to GDP at about 150%, and that's when you'll start to see the collapse of the dollar. And right now we're at about 128%.
Wow.
I mean, to explain to people just what I mean by that, debt to GDP, if you collectively took every dollar that was made from everybody going to work, every car, widget, vacuum cleaner, whatever sold, every penny that was made in the country, and put it all in one pool for a year, we don't have enough money to pay off the debt. We're still 28% short.
Yep.
Everything. We don't have enough.
Which I keep seeing a lot of people say that we need to go back to the gold standard. Mm-hmm. And I went and I looked because I was hearing somebody else talk about this. I think they said that there was an estimated like 28 or 30 trillion dollars worth of gold everywhere on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here going, if we had every ounce of gold, we couldn't even pay off our debt.
Right. Exactly.
It's insane. Absolutely insane. And you'd have to get in control, do something to lower it before you could even go back on the gold standard.
Mm-hmm. And you know, you go back to the 1910s, and you know, Woodrow Wilson was the one that pretty much screwed us. But back in the day when there was no income tax and the country functioned fine, we were on a gold standard. Now, granted, you didn't have, you were just starting with automobiles, okay? We didn't have internet and cell phone and everything. But even you go back and look at history, and everything was able to function pretty much the same with a whole lot less government spending. That, I mean, and I'm not saying anything that nobody knows here. Government spending is our problem. And whether it's Muslim Sesame Street or, you know, who knows what, that's got to stop. All this crazy bridge to nowhere and $200 hammers and everything. That's what has to stop. It's not what you or I or anybody else is doing. We're not the ones causing all of this. You can lay it squarely on the hands of Congress. And it's because of all these earmarks that they want to do over and over. Well, in order to get my vote, I need something for my people. We need to put construction workers to business, to work. So we need to build this bridge. Is it necessary? Well, no, but that way, okay. So basically, you're saying we need to piss away money so we can have your vote. That's the problem.
Yeah, which kind of gets to me a little bit, because you're saying that I am working 40 hours a week to pay my taxes just so they can fund a experiment on whether poodles or cocker spaniels prefer rock and roll.
Right. I mean, and I'll give you a real dumb story. This goes back to my military days. Okay. And as most of the people who watch my channel know, okay, I was Army intelligence. They sent me to DLI, Defense Language Institute, for 47 weeks to learn to speak Czech. Went to interrogation school. So, I mean, I was in school for a year and a half to learn to do a job. This was during the Cold War. And in the Army's infinite wisdom, they sent a bunch of us to Fort Bliss, Texas, El Paso, because all that money they spent, it was because there was so much of a threat of, at the time, Czechoslovakia attacking from Juarez, Mexico. And so we trained, and I mean, I fortunately was doing a lot of training, either tankers on how to do things, or because it was Third Armored Cav, or training FBI agents, working with Border Patrol, stuff like that, doing that. So, I mean, there was at least something, but never for a second did I ever use 47 weeks worth of training in language. What was the point? And it's not like I was the only one. There was a whole company of us who did this, so 300 some odd people. And, your tax dollars at work, that you need to protect the country. Okay. You need to rotate people from Germany back to the States but have something for them to do other than paint rocks. And the waste that we saw. I mean, and I kid you not, when the end of the fiscal year came up, the end of September, each company, each battalion, each regiment, whatever, had their budget, and we'd be told we need to spend X amount of dollars so we can get that budget for next year. And they'd come up with the stupidest, let's replace perfectly good spark plugs in a truck. Why? Those are good. But if we don't spend the money, we won't get it next year. Let's go out and buy hundreds of gallons of yellow paint to go repaint all the curbs. They're perfectly fine, but we need to spend that money. That's the stupidity that, and I mean, and I'm going back almost 40 years at this point. I can't imagine what it's like now.
No, it hasn't changed. I can speak from experience. It has not changed. Let's see. So we talked about the dollar collapse. So I'm going to follow it up with mine on, do you think for an actual large scale SHTF, do you think it's going to be one big event or a series of events that kind of roll all together?
I think I think it's going to be a series of big events.
Okay.
Okay. What comes first? I don't know. Okay. Do we see? If you put me on the spot and said what's going to happen right now, if somebody said you have to have a situation, this is what I'd say. We're going to have some sort of civil war in the United States first, and everybody goes, why? And I'll use the whole deal with these ICE protests. The guy down in Alvarado, Texas, the other day who got shot in the neck. The violence from the radical left is getting worse and worse and worse. We've all seen the videos of them throwing rocks and Molotov cocktails and all this sort of stuff. And now Trump said the other day that they have complete authority to do whatever's needed. And as soon as that turns into being one law enforcement officer, pick an agency, shoot somebody, that's going to start something internal. It'll start small and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's when you're going to get the Antifas or the BLM radicals or something. They're going to all get involved. Then that could roll up into, now we have economic problems because it's inevitably it'll start in the cities, okay, which is still where the majority of people live and where the majority of businesses are. So then you roll in there, if the businesses can't do business, then you see an economic collapse. And then at that point, China's going, you know what? Looks like a good day to take over the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You put me on a spot, that's the timeline I'd see.
Yep. And I agree. I think it's a daisy chain effect. You're going to have one, when it goes, it yanks another one and another one. And yeah, fully agree. Let's see. Next is from KYEMT, who wants to know, is AI just a tool that either good people or bad people can use for how they see fit, or has it gone completely beyond control that it's going to be bad no matter what?
I can't answer that. And I'm not. The simple reason is this: I just don't know enough about the capabilities of AI to, there's Chat GPT and their kids are using it to write term papers and stuff like that, or you can go on Twitter and use Grok and answer questions, or you've got some of the robotics, with what some of these things can do. I just don't know enough about the capabilities of it to give a intelligent answer to that question.
Which I get it, because seems like every time you try, you're starting to learn and it's already surpassed and you're behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It scares the crap out of me. I will say that. It's one of those things where I put it in the category of, just because we can do it doesn't mean we should. Yes. Thank you. That is 100% of what because I think in the beginning it's a tool. It's like a hammer. You can either build and do good, or you can use it to swing and tear down and be destructive. It's the user, not specifically the tool. But when you're talking about artificial intelligence, if it can do what it wants without control, then where do you stand? Well, okay, and I'll give you this one. This was probably about a month ago, and I remember reading a story on this, that there was something, an AI computer system, and they ran a test on it, and it was all BS, but they made a series of emails or whatever that were supposedly from the CEO to a secretary or something like that, talking about some sort of tryst they were having. And then AI was able to see all this. And then there was an email that went on later where the CEO was talking about, well, I think we need to shut down this AI. And the AI saw it and basically responded, if you try to shut me down, I'm going to expose your affair. Now, it was all fake, but, this was a survival instinct for the AI, and blackmail and stuff like that. And this was just a test, and that's what happened. But now start imagining that come up in real life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go back to, what was it, 1982 or whatever. Remember the movie War Games?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was, you know, mutually assured destruction. That was it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I saw something on, and I did an episode on one of the things for Y-Files that they did the kind of an AI thing to where they were able to hack and release every single piece of data on everybody. All you had to do is basically search engine, type in a name, type in an ad, type in anything, and you could see every single electronic anything that they've ever done. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's when you get into it. It's like, what have I searched for online? What have I bought online? You know, anything like that. You know, let alone the driver's license, social security number, but you know, get into your bank statements or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry, no.
Right. Right. Oh, and then I even had this conversation with several other people. If you can put out a couple of things, so I can say, well, Pinball donated to this guy and he bought this thing, and it shows proof. People start believing that whatever I put out is proof, and so now I can AI make things up, and I've already presented proof, so I got to be honest. And now people start believing the AI stuff too.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah, because now the lies can tell a lie often enough, and people eventually believe it's a fact.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely becoming a very, very interesting world with AI. So um, this one comes again from Jennifer Ocean Homestead. And I like that she asked this one because you have put out on your channel where you've done channel recommendations. And so she wants to know, do you have any other channel recommendations, or who do you follow on a regular basis?
I don't have nearly the time to watch videos that I used to. Pretty much my list of people hasn't changed. I haven't gone into any. I just haven't searched videos. How do you? I mean, even the ones that I used to watch a lot, I don't watch that much anymore just because I don't have the time. I mean, you know as well as I do, it's not, 10 minutes to make a video and that's it, and you're done for the day. I mean, I usually make 2 videos a day. My day starts around 4:30 in the morning, and by the time the lunch video goes up at noon, that's usually where I call it a work day. Okay? That's 7.5 hours. Okay, that's to make 2 videos, to research them, to do this, and then I've got a homestead to run. And especially like I told you before we came on, what was I doing today? I apologize for being a little sweaty. I was out picking cucumbers. I was out picking green beans. I was out burning brush that had to be cleaned up and stuff like that. And by the time I'm done for the day, I think I went to bed. I think I went to bed last night at 5:45. I was exhausted, and Mrs. P's like, "You just have to go to bed." And I literally went to bed, and I was out, and I woke up at like 4:10 this morning. I don't have the time to watch the videos like I used to, because more and more, as you get further into the prepping journey, at the beginning, it's like, oh, I went out and I bought 50 pounds of beans and 50 pounds of rice, and poof, you're done. But then all of a sudden, especially now, this time of year, you're going, okay, I've got all the harvest I've got to do. I've got all the weeding I've got to do. Oh, yeah, but the lawn needs to be mowed too. Oh, I need to be building this. I mean, and there's so many other things, you look at it and go, this is a full-time job in itself, taking care of a homestead. Then you and I and everybody else adds a full-time job on top of it, making videos, and you go, where's my downtime? Eventually you go, I need to sleep. Oh yeah, that might be a good idea.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I've had the honor and privilege of people coming to ask me, "Hey, I'm going to start up a YouTube channel. Can you help me?" And I love to support them and watch them flourish and grow. But it's also fun for them 6 months or a year to come back to you going, "What else do I talk about?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've been doing this. It'll be 5 years of daily videos come October, and 2/3 of the days are 2 videos at least. I mean, I've got over 4,000 videos I've posted,
Hmm.
and it's like there's always something to talk about, but so many people will send me, "Oh, did you see what was it? There was a story this week. I forget. I must have had a dozen people send me stories, and I'm like, how does this relate to preparedness in the least? You know, I'm not doing stories on Harry and Meghan or anything like that. Nobody, that's go to a gossip channel somewhere. That's fine. But what I'm trying to do is, as and just like you, as best I can to keep people informed of the threats that are out there and the solutions that I'm taking, whether or not they fit for them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's why I was really, really happy when I came across your channel years ago. You have completely made such a variety. You do review videos. You do Mrs. P in the kitchen. I was watching some of those the other day. And I mean, you take a philosophical approach. You have a little bit of everything. And sometimes I will search something out because there's a lot of mistakes I see where they get a channel and it's, oh, there's nothing new out. Well, you have 4 years of stuff. Go back and watch it. Like, it's there for it's a library of prepping stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that I talked about that are current events, but there's a whole bunch of those current events that at that time was very pertinent. I mean, go back to, I remember this video. It's like, what was it, like 2021 or 2022? It was January, and I had said on there, I said, if you are looking at buying a house, buy a house now, because you're going to see mortgage rates go nuts. You're going to see the price of houses go nuts. And sure enough, we all know what happened after that. We can talk about all the comments I've made on gold and silver or something like that, putting money away. Yeah. And everybody who's buying silver at $16, $18 an hour or $18 an ounce is pretty damn happy right now.
Yeah.
Are there things I've been wrong on? Sure. I mean, I did not think Putin was going into Ukraine for my life, and I've admitted that I was wrong. I'm not Jesus Christ. I don't have all the answers. I'm going to be wrong. I'm a human being, but I try to take my theory always has been to try to take a very analytical look at everything that's going on, try to extrapolate what the possible outcomes are for things that go on, and come up with the solution for what may happen. Because when it does happen, I'm not caught with my pants down. I try to get everybody to think about these things, and I get there's some people that know 10 times more about gardening than me, or 10 times more about finance than me, or pick something, okay? But there's people that don't know as much either. And so if you can't make a video that everybody's going to love. It's just because everybody's different, okay? Oh, I know everything about how to make sauerkraut. Okay, then don't watch the video.
Yeah.
But there's some guy that's going, thank God you made a video on sauerkraut. I'm wondering what to do with all this cabbage. I try to kind of go through my thought process on life and try to get everybody else to think about what could possibly happen in their scenario. Because what I do is only good for me. It may be good for somebody else. It may not be. You had a question early on. One garden or multiple gardens? Well, okay, I've got 3 acres. I've got room for multiple gardens. You're living on 1/3 of an acre? Maybe you don't. That's what works for me, not necessarily what works for everybody. And I try to explain that constantly. There is no one size fits all to this.
Yes.
You gotta take what you can get in the way of information, see what's pertinent to you, and put it into practice. What's not pertinent for you, throw it out. It doesn't make a difference. You know, you don't want to own guns? Great, don't own guns. Okay, you're not watching gun videos, but have bear spray or something in your purse, whatever. You know, do something. Have some sort of solution in case that happens and somebody throws a spike strip on your car and you pulled over on the side of the road with a flat tire, and you know, two gangbangers come up and try to yank you out of the car. What are you going to do? Well, you don't have a gun. You got to have something. You know, I just want that. I want to plant the seed. It's up to everybody else to grow the tree.
Yep, fully. That's one of the things that I like about yours is you give the thought process. You know, there's plenty of channels that's doom and gloom. There's plenty of channels that they go, "Hey, I'm Bob. Blue team's bad. Have a good night." And I go, "Where's the thought in this? You know, tell me why." So let's see. We're about to our hour, so I'm going to ask the one last question.
Okay.
We have a new subscriber, and they wish to stay anonymous because they are just starting out into preparedness. Young kid.
Okay.
He lives in a very big city. He's on like the 3rd story, I think is what he said. Lives downtown, doesn't have a car, walks or takes the bus to work and things like that. And I think he's in his 20s, young 20s. And he wants to know, is it too late to prepare, or can he even do it being downtown and things like that?
It's never too late to prepare. Okay. I mean, you know, but you got to start somewhere. And we all had a day one. That was it. And whether it was in 1992 or 1962 or whether it was July 2nd, somebody had a day one. We all did. And when you wake up and you go, something's wrong, what am I going to do? And going back to what I just said, his way of prepping is going to be very different than my way of prepping. Okay, it's a big difference living on the 3rd floor of an apartment building in a big city and living out in the middle of the country, surrounded by trees, and your nearest neighbor's a quarter of a mile away. You know, it's a big difference. But yeah, he's got to start. How he starts is up to him. Not knowing where he is, you know. Don't fall for one of these people that say, just buy a gun and you'll shoot your way into everything. That's not going to work. Okay. But he's got some problems too. You know, he's not going to put, you know, a year's worth of food away in an apartment because he's in a city, and you're probably, if anything goes bad, civil war, economically, or China, you're leaving that city. So, you know, the very first thing he needs to put together is a bug out bag, you know, because he's going to have to get out of there. He's going to have to figure out what his transportation is to get out of there, because, like you said, he doesn't own a car. He's reliant on public transportation. Well, public transportation isn't getting you out of the city. And, you know, when all of a sudden there's a civil war brewing, you're not going to go down and catch the subway and go, you know, gee, I want to get out of here, you know, the bus. That's not going to happen. You're going to be on foot or on bicycle. So he's got to look at those things. But this is exactly what I was saying. There is no one size fits all. What I would do if I was him, I'd have a bug out bag going. I'd probably have a bug out duffel bag. I'd have a bicycle of some sort that I could strap a duffel bag to and have a backpack on me that I could move with and have somewhere to go. Meet somebody, make friends that are 40, 50 miles away who live out in the country who are like-minded, and say, hey, I mean, it doesn't take, you know, a 20-minute conversation, say, you know, do this, but make friends with them over time. And then as a relationship blooms, maybe you start working with them going, okay, I want to get, if I've got to get out of the city, can I come here? Let me help add to the food stockpile or add to the ammo stockpile, because I don't want to keep it where I am in the city, but I want to have it somewhere here. As long as I'm welcome here, and build that. I mean, he's going to have to come up with a bug out relationship, I guess, is the only thing. You know, if he's got family, that's easier. If he doesn't, that makes it more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of not really struggled, but it was a lot of thought process on how I could give that advice. So I'm happy you could put 2 cents into that one. So
I mean, and again, I can go back to when I've lived in an apartment, and not in the city but in the suburbs, and go, okay, what am I going to do to get out of here? And you start thinking about this, you go, this ain't going to be easy, because it's not like you're going to go grab a U-Haul truck and load everything up, all the food, the weapons, the generators, the God knows what you got, any of the tools that you have. I mean, hell, I built a smokehouse. It's not like I can, load that up somewhere and go with it. He's not doing that.
Right.
So he's got to have somewhere, as well as I do. The further you get into this, you go, damn, this takes up a lot of space,
Mm-hmm.
And, now, okay, I'm in a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartment in the city. You go, there isn't any more closet space. Everything's under the bed, behind the couch. Where do I go next? It's like you hear people. It's like, I'm going to put it in a storage shed. That logic will never. I never understand that one. But okay, because you're not getting there. You're not getting to your storage shed. That's not happening.
Yeah. I've heard all sorts of different things, and I will always put my 2 cents in, going, did you think of this? And if it works for you, hey, maybe it's on the way to your bug out, and it's off some highway, and maybe it does work out, right? I'm not going to do it because I don't want to do it, but
yeah. I mean, and you have to be. That's the other thing. You have to be realistic. I mean, I look at where I am, and I've said many times, the only way I'm bugging out from here is if the forest goes up on fire, or the Chinese come over the hill. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's going to be bug out bag, take what I got and move. Okay. But yeah, it's where I'm already out in the middle of freaking nowhere. How much further out in the middle of nowhere can I get?
Right.
I'm not going to find a space out in the middle of the Nevada desert to bury a bunch of stuff and go, oh, okay, in a worst case scenario, I'll come here. I mean, not that it's, but
yeah,
you get my point.
Yeah, and so many people think when it comes to preparedness that it's some bad thing happens and then you go live primitive, and I'm going, no, I have a really nice, expensive, comfortable bed, and I have carpeted floors and power and air conditioning, and I'm not leaving here if I don't have to.
Right. Yeah. Now, again, this kid who's in the city, yeah, he's probably going to, because he's going to be living in a war zone.
Mm-hmm.
But, and again, that's where you get into rural communities, and community, as we talked about at the top, everybody around here's got a vested interest in protecting this area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think something happens, you're going to have big cities will turn into war zones that'll ultimately be probably gang took over.
Right.
Something like that. You'll probably, yep. And you'll probably have some sort of spillover gangs, some smaller ones that'll take over some of the suburby areas. Probably in the rural area, you might have a single warlord style, whatever. But for the most part, yes, the further you can get away, it's not accessible, right? It's just like wartime. If you're here and we're way out here, you have to have a supply line, right? Even if they try and come to you, they can only carry so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
and again, once you get into that scenario and martial law takes place, which it's going to, then the only way for people to get around is back roads, and most people are going to get lost because there isn't a millennial or a zoomer in this world that can read a paper map. So You know, they're going to be out there. They're not going to be able to get anywhere, and people are going to go, well, you're not going to be able to get to the grocery store either. No, I'm not. That's why I'm just going to go out in my backyard. I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, is it enough to feed me for a year? Well, I've got that. And yeah, I can fish. I can hunt for a little bit extra. Will everybody lose a lot of weight? Yes. But at least I will have something. I won't be starving when the grocery stores don't exist.
Yeah. There's your next $1 million plan, is the SHTF weight loss diet.
Right. There you go. Yeah. You know, it's like, okay, may not be eating wonderfully, but at least I'll be eating something.
Something. Yes, absolutely. So we have gone over our hour, and I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you're a very busy man. So I do want to thank you for coming on, sir.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
Yes, and thank you to everybody that submitted your questions. And if you missed a question and you want to know, tell everybody where they can come ask you questions, because you do live streams, right?
Yep. Tuesday night live streams at 8 o'clock Eastern on my channel, obviously. And 75-80% of the live stream is just Q&A. People asking me questions, you know, doesn't matter what. I mean, we've talked about gardening, finance, politics, the wars, whatever it is. People that movies or music, or, you know, it's a chance for community, for camaraderie, for everybody to get a chance to talk amongst themselves. I usually put up the live stream 3 or 4 hours ahead of time so everybody can get into the chat. They all communicate, talk to each other. I know people have built mags from meeting each other in there. So the whole point is community with that one.
Yes. Yes, it is. So I will post a link to Pinball's channel down in the description section. Go find him on YouTube, and that's the only one you've got, right? You're not on Facebook. I know that.
Nope.
Okay.
No, I'm on Twitter, but that's it. But that's just, I don't, that's just for research or anything. The only place you're going to, and I'll reiterate that here. The only place you are going to find any information out of me is on YouTube. I am not on Facebook. I am not on Instagram. There is a guy on Facebook who impersonates me. I've tried reporting him to Facebook. He blocked me, but a bunch of subscribers had seen that it was on there, that I was giving away a generator or something like that on Facebook. It's not me. The only place you will find me is on YouTube.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, as we kick this one to a close, I do want to thank you, because you have been going very strong, giving out really good advice. And one of the things that I most admire is all of your help that you do for the community. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we hit $4,000 for Kerrville Friday, so that'll be it. So we'll see what happens next. So
that is awesome. That is awesome. All right, so we're going to wind this one down. Thank you again. Make sure that you say hello to Mrs. P and the puppy for me.
No problem. All right, brother. Take care.
Take care, everybody.